Hi guys, so if you are running an OnlyFans management agency and you need to improve your marketing or just at least get a better understanding on how marketing actually works, how to bring in new subscribers to the account, this is the one video you need to watch, all right? So this is the diagram and the entire lesson that we're gonna go through today. And as always, if you wanted to actually get a little bit more extra clarity on things and you wanted to download this entire PDF, it's a multiple page PDF. You can always access that down below. Check out the links. It's completely free. You can download a multiple page PDF for you to read through. You can send it to your staff or your team, and they can get started with it straight away. All right. So that being said, let's just jump straight into it. And for anybody who's brand new here, my name is Marcus Hustle. I currently run my own agency myself. I've been doing it since 2020, and I've learned quite a lot. And I'm just sharing some value and some information for you guys with the hopes that I at least help some of you guys. And if you are interested in actual mentorship, one-to-one with me, and etc., you can message me on Instagram and so on, right? But within this lesson, the main topic is organic marketing plan, right? So here's where we're going to start off with. So social media changes constantly. That's the first thing, right? What works today might not work forever, but the fundamentals we use are built to adapt, right? So the things that we're going to be covering in today's video, which is like where to post, how often to post it, etc., that in itself never changes. However, like the actual trends and kind of different systems that we are going to cover slightly in this video, they will adjust, but it's more about what platforms to post and how frequently. You're going to get a lot of insight into this video, because a lot of people ask me like, how many times can I post per day maximum? Is there too many times? Is there too little? How do I set up an account? How do I reach a US audience? So we'll be talking about that later on, okay? The other thing to note as well is no platform ever really gives you like, hey, here's our T's and C's, and within there, this is exactly how you go viral. They don't ever do that, and they will never do that. However, they do tell you what not to do. So they do have, sometimes it's not even sometimes, most of the time it is quite vague on what you shouldn't do. But you know, use your brain. It is not rocket science. Try to not do too like explicit of content. Try to not push the boundaries too much, because the further you push the boat, you know, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. The further you push the boundaries of explicit content, the more likely you are to go viral, but also way more likely you are to be banned and your account deleted and so on. So I personally don't recommend doing that. So today we're going to be mainly covering very safe for work content that everybody can post. And yeah, it works very well. And then last thing to mention as well before we go into a lot of the practicals is that every client is different, right? What works for one creator might not work for others. And the practical here is, don't look at somebody like Sophie Rain or Jelly Beans or so on and just think, okay, well, she posted this TikTok or this reel. My client has to recreate it and it has to go viral. That's not how it works. Absolutely not. Don't get me wrong. There are certain trends that when you post about it, it will probably pick up more eyeballs. So at the time of this recording, out of all fucking things, on Twitter, there's a conversation going about 100 men versus one gorilla. So if you, like, just as a random example, if you were to post something on Twitter related to that with that caption, I mean, there is a higher chance of you hacking that audience and getting more eyeballs. And this is a trending topic that people are talking about right now, but I guarantee you by the time you're probably even watching this video, people aren't even talking about it. So the point being here is that don't just fixate on a trend that went viral a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago. You must be looking at what's going on right now in social media. And also don't specifically look at one creator. If she posted something yesterday, and it worked for her, it doesn't mean that it will 100% work for your creator. Like another example, we've had this before where we've taken on a client and, you know, she doesn't necessarily have any specific niches. She's just an OF chick. And her previous agency sent her TikTok ideas from a girl who was doing like yoga, and she was like super flexible. She could put a leg behind her head and all this crazy stuff, right? Now, this creator couldn't do that. So then it's like, well, okay, the yoga and flexible content maybe worked for this creator, but why would you send this to this creator if she physically can't do that? You get what I'm trying to say, right? So every client is different, and you must adjust the content ideas based off of the creator you're working with, right? Your client. So let's start from the beginning in terms of practicals, which is the account setup fundamentals. This is probably one of the most common things that I get asked all the time is, maybe you sign a creator in Eastern Europe or just anywhere that isn't USA. And people are like, okay, how do I reach a USA-based audience? And there's a couple of things. So if your client needs a new account, what you can do is you can order a USA SIM. You can get these online, very, very cheap. And what you do is you get a new phone, a new US SIM card. You put the SIM card into the new phone. You can also use a US VPN on top of that as well. Do not use Wi-Fi, only use data. Because with Wi-Fi, that's how, like, each Wi-Fi just has only one IP address. Whereas data, it doesn't have one specific IP. Again, I'm not going to, if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it too much. But just know, if you want to reach a US audience, these are going to be your best practices towards that, like first step. So new phone, USA SIM, and a USA VPN. Then you could also, just as another extra precaution, you could also buy a email address that was created in the US. So if you know somebody in the US, you just ask them to do it, and then they send you the login details to that Gmail or Hotmail or iCloud, whatever. If you don't know somebody in the US, then you can always buy them online. Like, they're super inexpensive. They're super cheap, right? Now, next one is warming up the account. So once you've actually created a new account, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, it doesn't matter. What you want to do is you want to warm up the account and engage with content similar to your clients. So your first couple of steps will be to find USA-based OF creators, and you just want to engage with their content, right? You want to scroll for about 30 minutes a day, about 3-4 times a day. So you want to do it for 30 minutes, stop for an hour, then do it for 30 minutes, stop for an hour, do it for another 30 minutes, and then stop for the day. 3 times a day, that's fine. And within these 30 minutes, just use it as a normal person. Scroll, click into a person's profile, look at some of their TikToks, swipe away, or Reels, it doesn't matter which platform we're talking about, and just use it like a real person. And the key here is that you're engaging and following and commenting on USA-based content. So again, look for creators that are in the US, like Sophie Rain, Jelly Beans, and so on, right? Next one is what I just mentioned here. So spend 30 minutes twice a day or 3 times a day interacting with similar content. And basically, the reason why you want to do that is because you're giving this platform an avatar that is being built. So every single one of you guys watching this, if you go on your Instagram For You page, or if you have a TikTok for your TikTok For You page, each one of you guys will have a different For You page, right? That's because that's the type of content that you engage with. Mine, for example, is cars, watches, and a bunch of cat memes, because apparently that's what I interact with. So yours will be whatever, right? And it actually it starts to get very, very specific over a long period of time. So as an example, if, like, for me, when I say, like, it's car content, it's only specifically supercars. It doesn't really show me any, like, rally cars. It doesn't show me any like, I don't know, monster trucks or lorries, or it doesn't show me modded cars. Like, it's only showing me supercars because that's the type of content that I'm interacting with, okay? Similar thing with watches, right? It doesn't really show me any, yeah, you get what I'm trying to say, right? And this is super, super key, because the more information you give it on what kind of content you're interested in, the more type of content is going to push back to you. And then when you're posting content on there as well, it is going to post similar content and push it out to people that are interacting with similar accounts. So you're basically building a data set of what kind of audience you're trying to reach, all right? So that's the first practical. Then next topic is why strategies are important, right? So posting isn't enough. Everyone can post content, but a strategy decides who gets seen and who gets ignored, right? So, like, everybody can just post once a day. But what is funny as well, especially if you're watching this and you're fairly new, a lot of people think that, well, what if I sign a client and I'm not able to help them scale? What if I don't help them grow? One of the funniest things is most creators, they're not very consistent, mainly because they've just got so many things to do all day, every day. There's no way they have enough time to actually post consistently multiple times across multiple accounts all day, every day, right? They've got so many other things to do. So by just you coming on board and helping them stay consistent with a nice, good strategy, that already is almost guaranteed to help them scale, right? The next thing is algorithms don't guess, they follow patterns. strategic posting times, warm-up actions, and account behavior. Tell the platform that this is a real relevant creator. Again, this is why the warm-up phase is so important, because if you just skip this and you create a new account, these platforms, they're built in such a way where they're there to minimize spam. They're there to basically improve the client's journey, right? Improve the client's experience on the platform. And what they don't want is to push out a bunch of just weird, dumb stuff. And most of the time, it's a lot of bots that post random bullshit, etc. And in order to minimize that from the platform's point of view, for the first 2 weeks, it really pays close attention to what are you doing? Like, how often are you on the platform? Like, are you really spamming like, or like, because a real person wouldn't do that. Real people, when they create an account, they may be going it for a couple of minutes, then switch off. And then the way they scroll, the way they click into profiles, the way they really pay attention to certain things, these algorithms learn that, right? So you need to play into that. And then without structure, growth is random, right? If you don't control your systems, your reach, engagement, and results will always be unpredictable. This is why a lot of people struggle with consistently growing. Sometimes they'll get lucky and they get a TikTok or a reel that goes viral. And also, when I say viral, I'm not talking tens of millions of views. I just mean, a 10x. So if you're averaging 1,000 views, if you get one for like 10, 20, 30,000 views, to me, in my eyes, that's gone viral on the account, right? A lot of people, they don't fully understand how and why that works. And that's where a lot of people, make the massive mistake. We've genuinely cracked the code to understand how and why these things happen and how you can replicate it. And that's what we teach in our mentorship program, by the way. If you would like me to hold your hand and build this entire thing and work with you and help you scale, again, that's something that I love to offer. We're very particular on who we take on. We don't take on everybody, even if you have the money. But if you are interested, again, you can probably check out some links down below on that. But let's carry on. So that's kind of the second point here. Next thing is posting frequency guidelines. So different platforms have a sweet spot of daily content. We're going to go into a rough average in just a second. But the way I want you to think about it is there is no right or wrong. One account can get away with posting 6 times a day even, like a reel. Whereas other accounts, if you post twice a day, it fucks up the entire account. And there are so many nuances and caveats, but in very brief example, how you want to think of it is let's just say you're on average, you're posting 1 a day. And let's just say for ease of sake of numbers, you are averaging 10,000 views every day, right? Per reel. Now, if you bump it up to 2 reels a day and it only drops by about 20, 30% in terms of viewership, that's okay. That's okay. But if you post twice a day now, and all of a sudden your views go from 10K to only 2 or 3K, and also you got to test it for at least 2 weeks, right? You can't just test it one day and be like, oh, well, Marcus said, if this and it dropped down, so we shouldn't do it. No, you got to test it throughout an entire week or 2 at least. But the idea is that you can slowly ramp it up as long as the average viewership only drops by about 20 to 30% max. So we've had this ourselves before where we're posting only once a day, or the client was, posting once a day before she joined us. We increased it to two a day, and the amount of views on average didn't really drop. And all of a sudden, wow, we just doubled her reach, by just simply posting twice a day. But we have also had instances where we bumped it up from 2 to 3 a day, and all of a sudden that really messed up the accounts, and we just switched back to 2. And the idea is you want to keep whatever that number is. If it's 1 a day or 2 a day or 3 a day, you want to keep at it until you grow a big enough of a new audience that you can get away with posting 2. And now the average views is about the same. And then you want to increase it to 3, and then so on and so on, right? So making the accounts look real. If client has a brand new account, fill out the account with grid posts. So you don't want to have just a blank page with no posts. You want to have some photos on there. You want to have some carousels. The idea, again, is just make it seem real. Make it look like a real account. What it shouldn't look like is click onto the account. Clearly it has a link in bio. There's some text on there saying, come check out my spicy page with a pepper emoji. No highlights and only reels on the post on the profile. That is what it should not look like, right? Because again, what normal account looks like that? Most girls do not have an account like that, right? Most girls have maybe a couple of words in the bio, maybe what university they went to or where they live, whatever, like which city they live in, right? So on. They'll have a bunch of highlights, which is completely fine. And then they'll have some photos and carousels, right? Of course, they can have some reels, but it doesn't have to be on the profile grid. So make sure you pay close attention to that. Next one is creating highlights saved from stories. So you should at least have, 3 highlights. One is the CTA. So one of them is it really depends, but for some of our creators, we actually don't have a link in bio, which, some people might disagree. We don't have this like on a main account, but typically the second and backup accounts, we have the CTA instead in the first highlight. So there's only one story saved on this specific highlight, and it has a call to, like there's a link embedded in the story, and they can tap it, and it's a beacons link, which automatically redirects to OnlyFans. But yeah, you can have like the CTA highlights, you can have like food highlights, and you can have me highlights. And again, it just makes it seem more realistic, right? Just look at like the average girl, what does she normally have on her profile, and just try to replicate it. Now, users on platforms don't want the typical OF girl, focus on standing out. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. The typical OF girl, I want to call it, Instagram account, it literally looks like how I described what not to do. Link in bio, and there's a call to action in the description, like check out my spicy page or whatever. No highlights, and just real, and just very like salesy. It just doesn't work anymore. It's 2025. That kind of worked a couple of years ago, but now because there are a lot of girls doing this, or it's more so the agencies that are doing this, yeah, it just doesn't work, and it blends in with everybody else. Now, next one is repurposing content. So we typically post the same videos across multiple platforms, but let me just explain what I mean by the same content. So first of all, we get the creator to record the content on her phone, like on her iPhone, and then she uploads it to a Google Drive. You can do Dropbox, you can do a mega file, whatever, but we do it Google Drive. Then what we do is we download the video and we edit that video on each platform on the platform itself, right? And we do a unique edit of each video. We also remove the metadata on the video file. So even though it's, just for a bit of context, like if you don't know what metadata is, in very simple terms, if you have like, for example, iPhone, you can go into the Photos album, click on any photo or video, and if you swipe up, I don't know about like Samsung, but I don't know, iPhone is like this. You swipe up and it will tell you like where the photo was taken, with what, as long as you took it yourself, by the way. If you download it from Google, it's different. It still has metadata, but it will have different text. But yeah, if you swipe up, it will tell you where you took it, when did you take it, with what camera did you take it, and so on. Now, metadata is that in an essence, but it also will save like, where was it uploaded, after it. So for example, if you download a TikTok, that has the metadata attached to it, which you can't see with your eyes, but in the behind the scenes, in like all the coding and etc., it will literally say this post was uploaded on TikTok and so on and so on, right? So you want to scrape the metadata. You can do that through Google, like as in you search on Google, metadata scraper, and then you can just upload it, re-download it, and now it will not have the metadata on there. So the next one is cutting parts out. So what we mean by that again is you don't want to just have the same 1 5-second or 12-second video and upload it just like this. The idea is that you want each platform to think that it's a unique piece of content. So all you got to do is cut the first second and the last second, or even half a second, and all of a sudden social media will think, oh, it's a different video. Another thing that you can do as well is you can change the saturation and contrast just ever so slightly, so the social media platform perceives it to be new content. You can also invert the video as well. So, if she's basically looking this way, you invert the video so it looks like she's looking this way, but it's obviously the same video. You see what I mean? And you just want to do these slight little changes, and all of a sudden the social media platform will look at that as a unique piece of content. Okay? Yeah, and then of course, when to post it and how many times. Again, like I said, there is no right or wrong, but to go off of like absolute averages on Instagram, this is per account, by the way. You can have multiple accounts. Matter of fact, the more accounts you have, the higher chance you have to go viral, right? Because you can post more per day that way. But per accounts, for example, on Instagram, you should ideally be maximizing at 3 to 4 reels a day. TikTok, you can push the boundary a little bit more, so 3 to 5 TikToks per day. And then X, you can be doing around 5 posts a day. Personally, we don't do 5 posts a day, but you can. Twitter, really, there's not really a limit. It is just the different strategy that you have on X, okay? And then Threads is a similar thing as well as this. Also, you have YouTube Shorts and Facebook Reels, also very similar to this setup as well, right? And then, yeah, scaling accounts. The way you can do it is when your client has her main accounts, with that one, you're going to, by the way, context, if you only want to promote the backups with the main account, if your client doesn't have a majority third world country followers. So if she has majority like India and Pakistan based followers as an example, I do not recommend you promote the second backup accounts with her main one, because it would just mean that you're fucking up the new account again. There's no point. But basically how you want to do the scaling of accounts is you create the backups, so 2, 3, 4 Instagram accounts, right? And then you make them private. You post a few carousels and actual posts on there, maybe add some highlights, etc., and you add a bio, etc. But you want to make it a private account, the backup, okay? And then with your main account, you post a story saying, hey guys, follow my private exclusive Instagram account here, and then at it and then tag it, right? And then all of a sudden, you're going to get 800 followers requests a day, or obviously depending on how many. If the main account has 400,000 followers, you might get a couple thousand requests. But yeah, all of a sudden you leave it for 24 hours. You just leave it. And then if they do look qualified, like all the followers, you then just approve all of them. Or vice versa. If they are like some third world country followers, you just decline it and you only approve the ones that you want. Approve them manually, and then you go ahead and start posting reels. Again, if it's a new account, only do 1 a day consistently, and then eventually once you grow that following, you can boost it up. Again, if you want more info on this, on exactly how do you actually come up with these viral ideas, how do you split test it, how do you find a niche? Niche is something that we've not even mentioned here, but that is the most important part. Again, you can message me on Instagram at Marcus Hustle. Check out the free download below for this document itself. And thank you so much, guys. Subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.